Okay, the forbidden thing. So, for instance, if you have blood in an egg, blood in what's called a blood spot, or in Yiddish it's called a Blutstrap, which is blood spot in English. Now there's two issues. Number one, it's forbidden to eat blood. Torah says you're not allowed to eat any blood. Secondly, sometimes in fertilized eggs, that blood is a sign that it's beginning to become into a little chick. Okay, the way we have eggs today, they're not fertilized, so therefore they're not going to produce any eggs. So when there's blood, a blood spot in an egg, the reason why it's forbidden is because you're not allowed to eat the blood. But the custom is you throw out the entire egg. As everybody knows, and you have to be careful with this, brown eggs, when you buy brown eggs, factually, many, many more eggs have blood spots than they do in regular white eggs. And you have to be careful with that because it's forbidden to eat the egg. Now what happens if somebody cracked open an egg, and normally the custom is in all Yiddish houses, when you crack open an egg, you check it, make sure back and forth, make sure there's no blood spot. Usually in a raw egg, it's on the yellow of the egg. So people would check the egg that way. What happens by mistake, the egg fell into a dish of food. You see the blood spot, but the liquid of the egg, the white of the egg, actually spread around all over the place. So if it's a normal white egg today, al pi din, all you have to do is take out the blood spot, because that you're not allowed to eat, and the rest of the egg becomes bottled, becomes nullified in the dish that you're making, so that wouldn't be an issue. That you would be allowed to eat the rest of the dish. But the custom is to check eggs. It's an old Yiddish custom to check eggs, and it shouldn't even be kids, it should be adults, checking the eggs to make sure that there's no blood spot in the eggs. Now, the question is, do you have to check a hard-boiled egg? Now, a hard-boiled egg, when you cook the egg, the fact is, it goes onto the white of the egg. It leaves the yellow and goes onto the white. So when you have a hard-boiled egg, there's two questions. Do I have to check a hard-boiled egg? Do I have to open it up and look inside the white, the white part of the egg, to make sure that there's no blood spot? Or am I allowed to eat the egg without checking it? So al pi din, there's many, many people that are lenient by hard-boiled eggs. They'll just eat the egg without even having to check it. There are times that the Rebbe ate eggs at a Farbrengen and Lag Ba'omer, not often, very, very rare. But when the Rebbe did eat the hard-boiled eggs, he did not check them for blood spots. When the Rebbe ate the egg at the Seder, at the beginning of the meal, you eat the hard-boiled egg, the Rebbe did not check for a blood spot. But I'm just telling you what he did. But normally, the custom is when you do raw eggs, when you're cracking open an egg, you should check and make sure but brown eggs is a much, much bigger problem than there are in white eggs. Now, sometimes you see color in the egg. Now, the only time it's a blood spot, if it's red or black. If, let's say, it's brown without any reddish in it, it's not a blood spot. You can eat the egg. Or another color. But basically it has to be, if it's red or black, then it's a problem. Okay? Next. Now, fish blood is permitted. Halachically, you can eat fish blood. But, I never seen this done. But in Shulchan Aruch it says, what happens if you took fish blood and put it into a glass? And now you have fish blood, and you're not allowed to drink it. Why? Because people see you drinking blood. They don't know that the blood of fish is not forbidden. The Torah says you're not allowed to eat the blood of a chayo or a behema, blood or beast. Human blood is also rabbinically forbidden. And we'll discuss, it's a very practical din, by the way, about human blood. Okay, therefore, if somebody, let's say, puts... scales into this glass of blood, a fish blood, then you're allowed to drink it because everybody sees it's fish blood. Okay, I don't suggest you do it anyway. Now another very practical din, especially if your gums bleed often. Sometimes you can bite into an apple, or a piece of challah for that matter, and then you take out the apple, you see there's blood on the apple from your gums, or whatever it may be. So you have to wash off that blood. That blood you're not allowed to bite into the next piece of apple or the next piece of challah, because that's forbidden to, you have to cut it off or wash it and throw it out. Now, blood though, that's within your mouth, it never left the mouth, that's not forbidden. So let's say you have bleeding gums or bloody tooth, and it's in your mouth, you can swallow I'm not saying you have to, but you're allowed to swallow the blood as long as it didn't leave the mouth yet. Once it left the mouth, like when you bit into the apple, and now it actually, there's blood on the apple, left your mouth already, so that blood you wouldn't be allowed to eat. But blood that's still in you, people have to be careful. I mean, people, we do things a lot of times subconsciously, we don't even realize. Sometimes you cut your finger, and you go like this, to stop the bleeding. So that you have to be careful, you're not allowed to do that, because then you're eating blood that left your body, and that you wouldn't be allowed to do. Okay, you have to, okay, that's as far as that goes. Now, next thing is like this, meat and milk, let me just check over here. Okay, next thing over here is like this, you're not allowed to eat meat and milk together. Now the Torah says 3 times, pertaining to meat and milk, the Torah says like this, Lo sevashel gedi b'chalev imo. You're not allowed to cook a goat in its mother's milk. So, and the Torah says it 3 times, 3 different places in Chumash. So the Gemara learns, why is the Torah saying it 3 times? The Torah is telling us 3 different dinim. It's forbidden to cook meat and milk. It's forbidden to eat meat and milk together, and it's forbidden to benefit from meat and milk together. Okay, so it's forbidden to cook. So if somebody wants to be a cook in somebody's house or in a restaurant, okay, a Jew is not allowed to be a cook in a restaurant, because inevitably in a non-kosher restaurant, they're going to be having meat and milk. They're going to put milk into the chicken soup or into the meat that they're cooking or whatever. So then it's forbidden. Forget eating it. Forget tasting it. You can't benefit from it, and you can't cook it. Just cooking is biblically forbidden. So that you have to be very careful with. Now sometimes, we said before that meat and milk is forbidden not only to eat and cook, but also to benefit. So what happens if somebody has dog food or cat food, that in the ingredients is meat and milk? So the din is as follows. If it's meat of a non-kosher animal, let's say it's pig's milk, or pig's meat, bacon, okay, whatever it is, from a treifa animal, and milk is mixed into that dog food, it's not forbidden to benefit from. You can't eat it, obviously, but you're allowed to benefit from that dog food. So you can feed that dog food to your dog or cat or other animal that you have. What happens though if it's from a kosher animal? In other words, the meat in that ingredients is beef from a cow. So even though it's not shechted, it's treif, but it's from a kosher animal. And because it's from a kosher animal, the prohibition of cooking meat and milk and the prohibition of not benefiting from also apply. So if somebody has dog food, cat food, or any other animal food, you can't say, okay, my dog doesn't have to keep kosher, but you're benefiting from it. And if you're benefiting from it, so then you wouldn't be allowed to use that dog food and give it to your animal to eat. So that would be forbidden. But what happens if it's chicken? Now let's discuss chicken for a minute, because it's relevant to a lot of dinim over here. Number one, because the Torah says you cannot cook a goat in its mother's milk, the Torah explicitly says that's only meat that has a mother. The Torah says you cannot cook a goat in its mother's milk. Chicken comes from an egg. There's no mother's milk in a chicken. So therefore, chicken and milk is rabbinically prohibited. It's midrabanan. But because it's only midrabanan, it's only rabbinically forbidden, you could benefit from non-kosher, from chicken and milk. So let's say you have animal food, dog, cats, whatever it is, that have chicken in the ingredients with milk, and there's no other meat in that ingredients from a kosher animal, that you would be allowed to benefit from, that you would be allowed to give to your animal. Or sell it, whatever it may be. So therefore, any some that if it's forbidden to benefit from, again, if the meat and the milk are nullified 1 in 60, so then again, you can benefit from it because technically you could eat it. But that's a different thing. Then you could benefit from it and the chicken and things like that. Because of the severity of meat and milk, and by the way, when we're speaking about meat and milk cooking, it doesn't matter if it's cooking, gas, electric, roasting, frying, any type of heat cooking process. Even if it's electric, gas, it doesn't matter. You wouldn't be allowed to cook meat and milk together. Okay, because of that, because of the severity of meat and milk together, what happens if two people they work in the same business, and now they're sitting down at a table together to eat. They're eating their lunch. One has a cheese sandwich, and one has a salami sandwich. So the din is, because they know each other, you're not allowed to sit next to each other unless if the one of them has like a unique thing to remind you that it's not to eat together. What it means is very simple. When people that know each other are sitting next to each other eating, I'll take your food, you'll take my food, we know each other, so I'll take from you, you'll take from me. So what are we afraid of? You're eating meat and milk. You're going to take milk and meat and so on and so forth. But what happens if somebody is eating straight on the table and the other one is eating on a mat of some sort or a towel of some sort? So that recognition causes that the person will not come to eat from each other, and then you would be allowed to. Like we said, either you have your own cloth, or one has a cloth, one doesn't, and also you have to be careful. You shouldn't drink from the same utensil. A guy has a salami sandwich and he's drinking, so there's a little bit of salami on the glass. This guy's eating a cheese sandwich, a little bit of cheese will be, so you have meat and the cheese so you have to be very careful. It's not Kabbalah. It's just very basic that you shouldn't come to eat meat and milk together, so people have to be very careful not to eat next to somebody eating meat and milk together and all that. And then, by the way, this applies very much in schools when the kids bring their own lunches. The kids are kids. You're sitting next to your friend and he's having a salami sandwich, you're having a cheese sandwich. Kids don't think meat and milk. So they might come chas v'shalom to eat a little bit from each other's. Therefore, a lot of schools, by the way, make a rule, you can't bring meat sandwiches. Or they have certain days where you bring meat and no cheese. But again, your teachers have to be very careful. If kids are bringing their own lunches and one has meat and one has milk, that they're making sure they're not going to sit too close to each other, and they have to make sure they're not going to be taking each other's food, because again, that will be a big issue of meat and milk together. Also, because of that, it says you can't eat from a piece of bread together. The same piece of bread cannot use for meat and milk. I'll give you a simple example. You have leftover challah. Okay, you cut up challah on the table Friday night, Shabbos. Okay, you put it on a serving plate. Half of it's eaten, half of it's not eaten. So you want to put it back into the bag. And Sunday night you'll eat it with milchiks. You have to be very careful, because loose bread that wasn't in a bag, just loose slices of bread that people are eating with a fleishik meal, a person will take his hands might be dirty from meat, and he'll take a piece of bread, and he might touch another piece of bread, and that piece of bread you won't even notice has some meat on it, and then you're going to make the next day a cheese sandwich out of it. So halacha says you have to be very careful. So if you take out certain amount of slices and you make sure it's finished, and then you take out, then it's fine, because the meat, the bread in the bag was never served with milk or meat. In fact, also some people, it says in halacha, that a lot of times you have salt shakers or pepper shakers, or I'll mention even ketchup and mustard and things like that. For instance, you have a salt shaker, okay? So let's say you're pouring salt into a pot of chicken soup. Steam is coming up from the chicken soup, okay? So steam might get into the holes of the salt shaker, and therefore some meat might be in the salt. And then you're going to use the same salt shaker for dairy. It's going to be a problem. Okay? So therefore in Yiddish houses, the custom is you have dairy salt shakers and meat salt shakers. Dairy pepper shakers and meat pepper shakers. Why? Because you're going to use the same one. You put it over food and steam comes up, and that's one issue. Another issue, and this is both kids and adults, sometimes you're pouring some salt over a piece of meat, and the meat can even be hot, and the hot meat is still going to touch by mistake. You touch the salt shaker to the meat, or to the hot cheese, or whatever it is. So then the salt shaker becomes meat and milk, because it's touching hot meat or hot milk. So then you're going to have a big problem, because then you're going to be having meat and milk salt shaker, which is a big problem. So therefore people really need to have really separate salt shakers and pepper shakers. Many people, it depends on how you use things in the house, many people will have special jars of, bottles of ketchup and mustard, also for meat and milk. Okay, you could be making a deli sandwich, okay, and then somebody could be pouring, especially kids or adults, the same thing. They pour the ketchup and they touch the meat with it. Okay, and sometimes there's residue of meat, and then you're going to put it on a cheese sandwich. Again, and also steam comes up. You're going to pour ketchup into a fleishik pot. You're not doing, I'm just giving you a crazy example. You want to pour ketchup into chicken soup, okay? So the chicken soup steam is coming up, and you're pouring the ketchup, and steam is going into the ketchup container, or mustard container, whatever it may be. So even though it's minimal, it's not going to make your food treif necessarily. If you by mistake, you use the same one. But nevertheless, the minig in all Yiddish houses that we have separate meat and separate milk ones, and that's the way it should be. Otherwise, you should have, it's going to be a problem. Okay, like he says, okay. Next thing is like this. Years ago, it doesn't exist today, but years ago, in the old shtetl, or as my kids would tell me, in the olden days when I grew up, in the houses, in all Yiddish houses, it was known that red is meat and blue is dairy. That was the accepted minig throughout the world. Meat is universal. You had a red tablecloth, it meant it was meat. You had a blue tablecloth, it was dairy. You had red plates, red line, pattern on it, it was meat. If it was blue, and by the way, if younger generation got married and they wanted to buy a blue set of dishes for meat, the mothers would scream at them, you're going to have a treifa house because you're having blue is dairy and it's not meat. And they would make it, today people are not careful in this because we have so many different varieties. But one thing I could tell you, people call me many times and they say they have certain utensils, they have identical meat and milk. They can have same glasses for meat and milk. They can have same serving spoons for meat and milk. They can have certain utensils, okay, that they use for meat and milk. So in the house, they have to keep them separate. But they're identical. What happens if they're identical? Inevitably, the housekeeper or the husbands or the kids or the wife, somebody's going to mix them up. And then you're going to have what you thought maybe is a halachic glass, but it looks exactly like a milchik glass, all of a sudden it's on the milchik side. Or you have a knife. Yeah, in halacha it says you're supposed to mark, in shchuch it says you should mark the knife that's dairy, there should be a mark on it that you should know it's milchik. Years ago, when the knives weren't like today, you have them in many million different patterns. Yeah, they would have one type of knife. So I remember people would either with marker put M for meat, D for dairy, and they would, because the knives are identical, and then the knives are going to get mixed up. So in Shchuch it says you should mark the dairy knife too, that it's dairy, and you shouldn't come to, God forbid. But you can imagine a kitchen where people buy the same, not the cutlery set. The cutlery set also, you can't have the same milchik and halachic, the same exact pattern. Or if you have a knife, it's a good knife, you like it, so you buy it for milchik and halachic. You can't do that, because what's going to happen is you're going to have a treifa kitchen. You can't. You have to have separate, different types of knives, or if you're using the same type of knife, you have to mark it that it's meat or dairy or whatever, either one of the two. Okay, that's just in the observances of not mixing together meat and milk together. God forbid, you shouldn't come to do those things which are no good. Next over here is like this. What happens if somebody eats meat and they want to eat dairy? So you have to wait. In halacha it says you have to wait 6 hours. There's two reasons why you have to wait 6 hours. And halachically it would be a difference between the two reasons, but halacha says we keep both reasons for the halacha. If somebody eats meat, you have to wait, the halacha is you have to wait 6 hours until you eat dairy. The reason for that is, one reason is because it takes 6 hours for meat to digest in your stomach, and therefore after the meat digests, there's no problem eating dairy. But if you're going to have it still digesting in the stomach, and you could put, now you're going to drink milk or eat cheese, so in the stomach it's not biblically forbidden, but it's going to be having meat and milk together. That's one reason. Another reason is because when you eat meat, women that go to the mikveh know that on the day you go to mikveh, you're not supposed to eat meat, because meat gets stuck in your teeth. So now, if meat gets stuck in your teeth, and then 6 hours later you're going to be eating dairy, you might have a piece of meat coming out from your tooth. What's the story after 6 hours? So after 6 hours, halacha says the meat that's stuck in between the teeth is already spoiled, it's not the real taste of meat, and it doesn't matter. But you really have, if you have meat in your teeth, you have to take it out, and rinse your mouth, but you don't have to wait another 6 hours. Okay? What's the difference between those two reasons? If the reason why you have to wait 6 hours is because it gets stuck in your teeth, or because of the stomach digestion. So there's a very simple difference. What happens if I drink chicken soup and I'm not chewing it? I'm not chewing it. It's liquid. Liquid meat. I take meat, blend it in the blender, and I'm drinking it. So if the reason is because of the teeth, it's no problem. All I have to do is rinse my mouth and I can eat milk. If the reason is because of the stomach, it still takes 6 hours to digest. Or vice versa. I chew a piece of meat, but I don't swallow it. Years ago, I'm telling you what Halacha says. Years ago, they didn't have blenders. Okay? How did they grind up meat for a baby? So Halacha says the mother used to chew the meat, just to chew it, to blend it, so to speak, and they would feed that to the baby. They didn't have blenders in those days. So what's the scenario? The mother is chewing, or the man, the husband, whatever, is chewing the food, but they're not swallowing it. So according to the reason of the teeth, you have to wait 6 hours. According to the reason of the stomach, you don't have to wait 6 hours. So halacha says, bottom line is, we keep both reasons. We keep both reasons, which means, practically speaking, that if you chew it without swallowing it, or you swallow it without chewing it, you have to wait 6 hours. Now, it's just not enough to wait 6 hours after meat before you eat milk. You have to rinse your mouth. Besides the 6 hours, you have to rinse your mouth. You have to eat something to take out food that's stuck in between the teeth of the milk, the meat and milk, and then you can 6 hours later you can eat the milk. But another detail that has to be kept also, it has to be a different meal. In other words, if you washed, let's say, 12 noon, and you're having a long feast, okay, and you eat meat at 1 o'clock, okay, and that's it, you're not eating any more meat. And the meal extends until 10 o'clock at night. So 1 o'clock you ate meat. So now, 7 o'clock, or whatever, you can have milk. Halacha says you can't have milk yet, unless if you bench, make an after. It can't be in the same meal. In other words, you can't have meat and milk in the same meal, even if it's 6 hours apart. So there's a few conditions. Number one, you need 6 hours. You have to rinse your mouth. You have to eat something, and it cannot be the same meal. If those conditions are met, then it's fine. Now, we're going to have to continue this next week. I just want to mention one more din, that what happens if somebody is sick, i.e. a little baby, especially under 2, a little baby, and they had meat, and they're going to bed, they need their milk bottle. So according to halacha, if you have a din of a sick person, 1 hour is enough between meat and milk. But that's only for sick people. Years ago, and we'll leave it at years ago, when people had ulcers, the cure for ulcers was to drink milk. I know how many of you remember this. Remember my days growing up as a kid. God forbid, and now they have different medications, a whole different world. But if somebody had ulcers, stomach ulcers, they would be drinking a lot of milk. Otherwise, the stomach would be very painful. Then they also paskin, if somebody has ulcers, they need to drink milk because they have a din of a sick person. 1 hour after finishing the meat, you also have to rinse your mouth and eat something. But a moggle, I don't know, whatever that is. Goggle. No, that's different. Anyway, so then the din would be that for a sick person, 1 hour is enough. Mitzvah Hashem, next week we'll continue this. And right now we're going to go to Tanya.